Some big news in the NFL as we transition to football, especially given that the draft is fast approaching. The NFL draft is quickly approaching. In fact, I believe it is around April 31st to May 1st or April 30th. One of those days. It's coming up in about 2 weeks. Hard to believe. And some teams are starting to round into shape, turn that corner. And the Cleveland Browns continue to make moves this offseason. We've already seen what they've done with their defense, and now they are expected to potentially finalize a deal with Jadeveon Clowney, who was the former number 1 overall pick in 2014, was drafted by the Houston Texans. And they are potentially, the belief is that they will finalize a deal and a contract today, sometime today. And first, let me just say this. Jadeveon Clowney, he's coming off that lone season with the Titans. We understand he only played in 8 games. He was injured. He injured his knee in November, didn't return. Really wasn't that productive with the Tennessee Titans. 19 combined tackles, 4 pass deflections, a forced fumble, 6 quarterback hits in 8 games played. But we know a couple things. One, we know that the Browns seem to have gotten over that and gotten rid of that proverbial monkey off their back by making the postseason for the first time since 2002, which at the time had been the longest active streak of missing the postseason for an NFL franchise. So they're heading in the right direction. Their defense was a struggle, 17th in the NFL last year. But then again, the Tennessee Titans had the 5th worst defense in the NFL last year. But for me, when I look at Jadeveon Clowney, this is the prototypical number 1 overall pick type of player, a defensive end that is an absolute physical specimen, an absolute star. This guy is 6'5", 260 pounds, and he possesses all the traits to be a dominant player and to be a real impactful player and to be one of the best defensive players of all time. It just hasn't quite materialized. And that's been the biggest kind of disappointment in years past, was God's blessed you with all of these gifts, but we haven't reaped the rewards of it. We haven't seen you be extremely dominant yet. In fact, the only time that Jadeveon Clowney ever really sustained success was when he played alongside J.J. Watt, who will go down as perhaps a top 5 defensive player of all time, maybe top 3 defensive ends of all time. So when I think back to, okay, why is this? How is Jadeveon Clowney going to be impactful? I think part of the reason why he will be is because he has showed enough glimpses recently to prove that he can still be productive. In fact, when you look at his stats in 2017 and 2018, I realize that was over 2 years ago, but with Seattle or with the Houston Texans, 2017, 9.5 sacks in about 15 games. 2018, 9 sacks. That can work. Now in Seattle, obviously the production slipped. He recorded just 3 sacks that entire season. We get it. Last year with the Tennessee Titans, 0 sacks. I understand. But when we think back to when did Jadeveon Clowney achieve the most as a player, it's when he played alongside J.J. Watt. And now he's going to be playing alongside a guy in Myles Garrett, who's also now one of the best defensive players and defensive ends in the NFL, a guy who finished 6th in the NFL last year with 12 sacks. So I think that if there was ever a time to take a chance on a guy, and again, they're only going to be paying him, it's been reported to be roughly $6.5 million for a 1-year contract. I think that that's completely worth it if you're the Cleveland Browns, because this is a team that has gone out and has been aggressive on the defensive side of the ball. When you think to what the Cleveland Browns have done this offseason, they signed John Johnson and Troy Hill from the Rams, the free safety and the cornerback, so they buffed up their secondary. And now you pair Myles Garrett with Jadeveon Clowney. I think that if there was ever an opportunity for Clowney to flourish, now would be the situation where he's paired alongside another dominant defensive end. And so the Browns defense, even if you're getting just 75 to 50% of Jadeveon Clowney, I still think that can be enough to offset the potential issues he may come with, or the potential baggage that he may come with, or the lack of production, to me. So we'll see what happens, but I actually kind of like this move for the Cleveland Browns if they are able to finalize this deal. I do think that he's someone that can continue to be productive.